Welcome back, everyone. Today I'm going to be shedding light on how to attain guidance during the decision-making process. So, how do you attain guidance amid the decision-making process? Without further ado, without further delay, allow me to demystify that answer to that inquiry right here, right now. Attaining guidance amid the decision-making process on your end involves performing a cost-benefit analysis. When you perform a cost-benefit analysis, you're able to determine in an expeditious manner whether or not a decision is deemed to be warranted or unwarranted. Of course, the future is enigmatic and obscure beyond a veil of time, so we cannot definitively know with inerrancy as to whether or not a decision will yield favorable, desirable outcomes. However, we can project whether or not a decision will be favorable or unfavorable based on the results of the cost-benefit analysis. If the projected benefits of implementing a decision preponderantly outweigh the costs incurred by implementing a decision, then the decision is often deemed to be a warranted decision. However, if the costs incurred by implementing a decision preponderantly outweigh the benefits reaped by undergoing a decision, then the decision is typically deemed to be an unwarranted decision. We are not prophetic, we are not clairvoyant, and we should always seek guidance amid the decision-making process. You should not just solely depend upon the cost-benefit analysis to provide you with some semblance of guidance amid the decision-making process. And you should not solely depend on deferring to the judgment of others to provide you with guidance amid the decision-making process. You should consult multiple people, professionals, highly knowledgeable, highly wise, highly competent individuals prior to the advent of making a decision. You want to know what repercussions, you want to know what ramifications can ensue post making a decision. You do not want to make abysmal, calamitous, direful, unfruitful, insalubrious, inimical, internecine, abysmal, wretched, egregious, appalling, abhorrent decisions. You do not want to be set back by your own ignorance. So become highly knowledgeable, become highly competent, become highly wise beyond your years. You want to be able to thrust your life into a forward-moving trajectory in full throttle, and you always want to be able to consecutively implement stellar, optimal, prudent, shrewd, judicious, productive, fruitful decisions. It's a disservice to yourself to implement decisions that profusely set you back. So if you want to be able to attain additional guidance amid the decision-making process, consult multiple people, consult multiple professionals, and glean insights from other people who are highly knowledgeable, highly wise, and highly competent. You can reach out to them on internet forums. You can also email them. You can also call them. There are so many ways in which communication can be conducted. But typically, you want to see I should say you want to be able to find commonalities from their insights post consulting them. You want to make sure that your prospective decision is eminently aligned with their advice. If it's not, if it is unaligned, then you may want to consider reconsidering your decision. You want to make sure that your perspective is aligned with the majority of perspectives from individuals who are deemed to be highly wise, highly knowledgeable, and highly competent part of the advent of implementing a decision. Because if you go against the grain when you're implementing a major decision, then you're all the less poised, all the less primed, and all the less apt to yield favorable outcomes. Of course, we do not know what outcomes will be yielded, since the future is enigmatic and obscured beyond a veil of time, but we can reference historical data appertaining to decision making in order to ascertain if we will yield similar projected results going forward if we were to follow suit of past decision makers by implementing similar decisions. Of course, the results and outcomes that ensue may be disparate because the setting in which the decision is implemented is different from the setting in which the decision was implemented in the past. So, the professionals are bequeathing knowledge to you, and if they deem a certain decision to be ill-advised and imprudent, and if there's commonalities and a consensus and an agreement among their opinions about implementing the decision, then that can give you cause to forgo making the decision, and that could deter you to make the decision. And if you're going against the norm, or going against the grain, or going against the consensus post-consulting professionals, then making the decision is more than likely going to lamentably redound to your disadvantage. You want to be able to glean as many insights from as many professionals as possible prior to the advent of implementing a major decision. You do not want to make a decision that will cause you to become insurmountably indebted, nor indigent, nor destitute, nor impoverished, nor that will profusely set you back for decades on end. You do not want your life to be in arrears, metaphorically speaking. You do not want to regress in life. You do not want to stagnate. You always want to be able to thrust your life into a forward-moving trajectory, full throttle. You want to be able to reach your overarching goals and reach your higher aspirations and actualize your latent potential and manifest your overarching, lofty, ambitious, grandiose visions into reality. You want to be able to bring your dreams into fruition. You want to be able to live a meaningful, fulfilling, worthwhile, inspirational, laudable, meritorious, eventful life. And if you're not leveraging all your options to attain guidance during the decision-making process, and if you wind up making asinine, imprudent, gormless, impetuous, impulsive, unfruitful, inimical, internecine, insalubrious, unwarranted, unmerited, unvindicated, poor decisions, and it can redound to your disadvantage. So if there is a consensus among professionals that implementing a certain decision is unwise, then it may behoove you to take heed of their advice, especially if they are highly competent, highly knowledgeable, and highly wise individuals. However, the results that your decisions will yield are enigmatic, but you can always reference the outcomes of other decision makers. You can always refer to historical data to determine whether or not implementing a similar decision will yield a similar result that it did for other people. However, just because one person, for instance, won the lottery in recent weeks does not mean that you will prevail in the lottery if you were to buy lottery tickets. Just because someone was able to profit from buying a luxury home does not mean that you would be able to yield similar results. So just bear that in mind. You want to be able to mitigate against risks. So to recapitulate in some succinctly stated, the abridged version is that in order to attain guidance in the decision-making process, utilize the cost-benefit analysis as a tool to provide you with some semblance of guidance in the decision-making process, and also consult professionals to determine whether or not a decision is warranted or unwarranted. You can defer to their judgment if you so choose to. You want to be able to glean insights from their perspectives and see if there are commonalities and if there is a consensus amid their... You want to be able to see if there is a consensus among their opinions. And you also want to be able to reference historical data. And that way you could extrapolate if the decision that you're implementing is more than likely going to yield favorable results or unfavorable results. I mean, if it has a consistent record of yielding favorable results for other people, it may yield favorable results for you, but that's not always the case because the context in which it is being implemented is disparate from the context in which it was implemented in the past. You live in a different era. You live, more than likely, in a disparate nation than other people implemented similar decisions. And there are disparate exogenous factors. There are different variables that come into play. So the setting is different, the time period is different, and the variables are different. So do your utmost best to consecutively implement optimal decisions and do not shirk on doing so. Even if there is a consensus among professionals that a decision should be foregone, they still do not know the future. They do not have a crystal ball into the future. They are not prophetic. They are not clairvoyant. However, they could foresee direful, calamitous, undesirable, unfruitful, inimical outcomes transpiring. Then it may behoove you to take heed of their advice, especially if they are deemed to be highly competent, highly knowledgeable, and highly wise individuals. But the future is obscure beyond a veil of time, so since it is enigmatic, results are not guaranteed, outcomes are not guaranteed, so take everything they say with a grain of salt because they do not know what future events will unfold, in spite of how knowledgeable, competent, and wise they may be. So obtain guidance during the decision-making process and consider their perspectives, consider the historical data, and consider the results of the cost-benefit analysis. Historical data that shows that implementing a similar decision yielded favorable results in the past may allow you to deduce that implementing a similar decision will also yield you favorable results, but that's not always the case. So, when you listen to professionals, you at least have some semblance of guidance in the decision-making process. When you conduct a cost-benefit analysis, you at least have some semblance of guidance in the decision-making process. And when you reference historical data, you at least have some semblance of guidance in the decision-making process if the historical data is germane to the decision that you're implementing. I hope that you found this video to be enthralling, insightful. Captivating, riveting, mesmerizing, and of course, engrossing. Have a blissful day. Goodbye.